Friends, welcome. Hope you're having a good day here at the community college and this event. And what we're going to do here in the next hour is talk about networking, talk about what it is, what it isn't. I hope you don't let me talk the whole time. I really would covet your input, your responses, and add to what I'm going to be sharing today. If you didn't get a handout, make certain you got a handout. Don's got them in the back there. And let me ask a couple of questions. Didn't ask it last time. Maybe I should this time. Is it safe for me to assume that all of you are between positions? Okay. Okay. I want you to now repeat after me. I will never refer to myself as unemployed. I am in transition. Okay. And how many of you were involuntarily released from employment? Okay. I will never refer to myself as terminated. That's assassination language. Don't use it on yourself. It's tough enough, right? Being in a transition, you don't need to be putting yourself down. I'm between positions, looking for a new assignment. I was involuntarily released or downsized. Downsized is now understood in West Michigan. When I came here in the late 80s, I asked people, hey, has any downsizing occurred here? I had people say, what's that? Oh, that'll never happen in West Michigan. Never, ever happen. Unfortunately, of course, it's happened everywhere. So, because we have a world economy that's kind of driving it, not just regional economies or state economies. Well, I'm Ken Soper. My background is, and I usually don't say it this way, so don't follow my model, okay? I better back up and say, my developed skills and expertise are in career counseling, work search coaching, and helping people find work and stay employable. I've done that kind of work on a college university campus as a career services officer, where I started career services offices from scratch, literally buying the carpet and finding the place and putting a program together and then delivering it. I have my own firm, Life Steward Group, and I'm with a few friends launching a nonprofit ministry through churches to help people like yourselves find work and stay employable, called EARN, Employment and Resource Network. So, what did I tell you? I told you a little bit about myself. Now, why did I do that? I was going to start to tell you it another way, and then I caught myself. See, even I have to think about it. I've been doing this so long. I told you what my talents and skills were. I didn't talk to you about my age. And some of you in networking are going to inadvertently fall into the habit of saying, oh, I have 25 years experience. You have just focused on your age, not on your talent. So one of the things we're going to talk about today in terms of networking is how do you go about this process in a way that's positive, focused on helping you present who you are, what you have to offer to a prospective employer, and not focus on the things they don't care about or that in fact work against you. And I'm looking around the room and I'm saying, I bet most of us are 40 or better. Now I've cut all my hair off, so you can't tell how little I have. And grown a goatee, because guess what? That's the fad now for 21-year-old professional baseball players. Okay. Well, enough of my carrying on. So we're going to cover the who, what, when, where, how, and why and how of networking. Now, I know that even coming here today, you've already been doing some of this. And what I'm here to talk to you about is that everybody should be networking, and you probably already are, and you just didn't realize it. And what I want to suggest to you is some ways that you can be more intentional about it. Because if you think about networking, what is it? It's about building a community. It's about being part of a community. And one of the things that we're learning, I think, again, in at least our culture and our society, is we spend a lot of time sitting in front of the television or not being involved in our community in some way, and we've lost those connections. Any of you ever seen the book Bowling Alone? Written by a psychologist or sociologist out of Harvard, I believe it's Harvard, who basically said, you know, we've gotten into a habit of kind of cocooning so much we've lost our connections. And we really need to reinvigorate that. And we need to do that as a lifestyle, not just when we're in transition between positions. So if you, and most everybody does have a network, they just haven't thought about igniting it in a way. And I'm going to suggest some ways you can ignite it. Now, Bobby Twa put this presentation together, which is great. She gave me a lot of freedom to go everywhere I want to. And one of the places I want to go is to suggest to you that networking isn't just about looking for work. It's about helping other people and in turn having them help you. To my mind, the life principle that covers this and a lot of things in life is the golden rule. Do for others as you'd have them do for you. So one of the things I'd like to encourage you to think about is, as you're networking and looking for new work, by the way, I do not like the word job. No employer just wants to hire somebody that just wants a job. Work assignment, I think, is a better way to describe it. Everybody's looking for a work assignment, and tomorrow if the employer wants to change it and I can fit better into that assignment, I'll shift over into that, okay? But one of the things that we want to be certain we're doing is helping one another out and thinking of giving as much as getting. And this is a problem I've seen for the 30 years I've been doing this kind of work, is we only start getting our networking really going when we need a job or we need a new work assignment. We've got to stop doing that. We've got to do it all the time. It needs to become a lifestyle so that it's very natural to one day go to, your first name please? Dan. Dan, I'll say, Dan, hi, I haven't talked to you in a while. Well, guess what? I'm in transition again. And Dan's response is not, oh gee, I haven't heard from you for 15 years. It's, Dan's, and I've got a relationship going, and by the way, Dan knows that I've been looking out for him and kind of keeping my ears and eyes open for information that could be helpful to him, so that now when I come to him and explain the situation, he's ready to help me. He's wanting to help me. And I give him enough information to know what I'm looking for. And by the way, you don't ever want to go to anybody and say, Dan, I need a job. Do you know where there is one? Because guess what? 99% out of 100 people are going to say, I don't. But if I have a relationship with Dan, I have the opportunity now to continue the relationship because I've listened to him, so I've been giving by listening, and now as I ask for help, he has a better idea that it's not just about today and I need a job today, it's about our relationship. So if I can encourage you that it is about looking for opportunities, but it's not in this, I want to call it laser-like way, Dan, tell me where there's a job, I want to get this over with in a hurry, which of course we all want, right? If we could get this done on Monday morning and go to work, Monday afternoon, we'd all like that, right? All of you love job hunting, don't you? No, most of us don't. Most of us don't. And again, it's not about asking for, expecting it, and it's not about trying to be manipulative. This is part of the problem for many folks who are wanting to help us, is that if we haven't approached this process to develop a relationship, then the perception of the person being asked is, you just want to take from me. It's not about giving. And if I can caution you that you need to build a relationship with your network, even if it's reignite it, even if I hadn't talked to Dan in 15 years, maybe the place for me to go with you, Dan, is, Dan, we haven't talked in a long time. How about a cup of coffee? Notice I didn't say anything about him in transition. Reignite, reestablish the relationship, or start one, and then get better acquainted. And I'm going to suggest some ways for you to get better and better at getting to know the persons in your network first, so that then you have the relationship established. Now you can ask for help, and you can ask for them to be part of the network in a way that'll be effective. So we always should be networking. Where should I network? There isn't any place where you can't network except on a desert island. and you're the only person there. And I would suggest to you, you actually probably, if there are other living beings there, you might actually be networking, not in a human way, but there's connectedness going on. Any event is a really good place to go. And one of the things that you have to be prepared to do is to be able to listen, but also talk about yourself, just as I gave you my, what I call a 90-second verbal resume about what my talents are. By the way, when I was presenting that, I don't know if you heard, but I did not use the word experience, and I did not use the word year or years. Raise your right hand. This is my left hand. Raise your right hand. Okay. I will never use the word to experience or years to explain my talent. And why is that? You're focusing on your age, not what you're good at. I worked for 5 years for the Area Agency on Aging of Western Michigan. I ran, by the time the program ended, because the federal funding stopped, I was running the program and doing the career counseling and work search coaching. I can't tell you how many times I'd ask people to do a verbal resume, and they'd start out by telling me all the stuff that focused on their age and things that weren't relevant to what they're looking for. So you really need to work on thinking about how you're going to describe who you are, so when you go to these events, you can make some connections. We had a funny incident happen in the last presentation. Funny in one sense, sad in another, but I repeat it here, and that is, I've seen so many people looking for work. Guess who they didn't network with? And their spouse. In this group this morning, we had somebody who had an aha sitting next to her husband who's looking for work, that, oh my goodness, I can help him because I know somebody that he should be talking to. And I can't tell you how many times I've seen this happen. So you think you know your significant other? You need to sit down and really talk with them. Get them to explain what they're really good at. And other family members. So family gatherings and celebrations, excellent place. Sporting events, you could put the word sporting in quotation marks, because there's the white caps, and then there's, a billiard tournament with 5 people in a neighborhood. But that's a sporting event, all right? But any place where people gather. This next one, association and clubs. I like to call this affinity groups. Affinity means you have an affinity for somebody, you have something in common. We had, and we're going to do a little exercise with you all, we had an exercise in the last group, and we had only about 8 of us here, and we had you fill out a card and put down what your interest is, not just what kind of work you like. We had 3 people that had the same common affinity. They were interested in the same thing, and one young man who was sitting right there who was interested in space exploration. My son is a NASA engineer. My son-in-law is a NASA engineer working on the next moon landing. This guy got really excited. Okay? So my point is that you need to think of affinity groups as something that you need to explore. And it's for a couple of reasons. One is, you'd be surprised how your interests might lead you to somebody. And I told this story this morning. I'll tell it again. The gentleman I worked with a couple of years ago, he was a controls engineer, didn't have a college degree, struggled. As a matter of fact, he was in transition twice, and I worked with him 2 times. One of the transitions he was in, he got really frustrated with his job search. You all are really happy with your work search at this point, right? How many of you are frustrated with it at this point? Okay. I said, go take a day or 2 off. Go with your affinity groups. What are you interested in? And he was a ham radio operator. So he said, okay, I decided to take a few days off. I'm going down to Battle Creek with some friends. We're going to carpool down there to this event. So they get in a van, 7, all men, as it turned out. And as they get talking on the way down, he reveals that he's in a transition, and one of his target companies is a company here in Grand Rapids. Guess what? 5 people in the van worked there. So my suggestion to you is sometimes those things that you think have no relationship to your paid employment are things you ought to use as a means to explore and to build your network. Of course, conferences and trade shows is another kind of thing to do where you have gatherings of people. And if you hear one other thing from me today, that word volunteering, we know research tells us that people who are volunteering while they're in transition find jobs faster. Doesn't mean you have to spend your whole week volunteering. An hour, half an hour a week. Find something that you can do and give back to the community essentially, because you've got talent they bleed for. They can't afford to buy your talent. But if you can volunteer a little bit, you'll also make some tremendous connections, and of course, you build some what we call social capital with them. They want to help you find that new situation. So go to United Way here. I forget what the name of it is. The Heart of West Michigan or something like that is what it's called. But I know there's some folks here who have that kind of information. You might want to explore that. And I would encourage you, don't leave behind the volunteering you're already doing. But you need to kind of activate it because people know you there and they don't know you in terms of the situation maybe you're in. And I don't know what your experience is, but I find a lot of folks, it's interesting about faith communities too. They don't talk to one another if they've lost a job. And I don't know if you feel this. I know that I've dealt with a number of people. You feel a little bit of shame about talking about it. You shouldn't feel ashamed. I mean, that's the wrong way to say it. Let me encourage you not to feel ashamed. It just happens. And what you need to do with those volunteer situations you're already in is just make people aware of the situation. And then secondly, try to volunteer maybe in something you haven't done before, because that'll expand your network. I know a lot of people, because of my work, who volunteer a lot with their faith community. Well, sometimes they don't share the information in their faith community that they're looking at. And faith communities are sometimes don't know quite how to deal with the prospects of their attendees or members or participants in their kind of activities being in a transition. Well, that's one of the things my group of cohorts in crime are trying to do, is help churches find ways to help you find new work and stay employed. So we're trying to help their churches learn how to do that better. So again, probably if I said one thing, it's associations, clubs, affinity groups. Anybody you have an affinity with could be a great way to go. And part of the reason for this is that most jobs are found through networking. There's research that goes back decades, at least in the U.S., that says 4 out of 5 jobs are found by some kind of networking, word of mouth. And I don't know, how many of you have applied for a job online lately? Yeah. How many of you felt like the information went into a black hole? Yeah. How many of you have heard stories that, and give a number, applied for this one job? I heard one recently, a local organization put up a posting on its website, 24 hours took it down, and in 24 hours they had 3,000 applicants. Now, you've got to play that game because that's the way that employers want you to apply. But one of the things you've got to do is make certain, do I match what they're looking for? Do I spend my time with that? And also keep in mind that there's lots of jobs that are never going to get advertised. And secondly, even if they are advertised, it's your networking that will help you get to the top of that stack. And so you need to be doing that. And one of the things I kind of slap people's hands a little bit, as kindly as I can, is I hear people, they've applied for a job and then they'll tell their network, I'm looking for somebody who can help me learn more about this company. Any of you play cards? That's like playing your cards before you know what Trump is. You want to find out what the Trump is before you play the cards. So I always encourage people, slow down a little bit unless there's an obvious deadline. Ask your network, do research, find out ways that you can find the information that will make you stand out above the crowd. And sometimes also help you know, I shouldn't bother to waste my time with this one. This is just going to be so hard to get through that very, very, very narrow door. Okay. Obviously, we want to get to the hiring manager, and that's really what networking is all about. Is essentially we're really trying to find people who have a need that we could fill. And of course, there's a lot less competition if you're networking compared to 1 to 3,000 versus maybe 1 to 10. I like those odds of 1 to 10 a lot better. Or maybe 1 to 1. A friend of mine, who I'll just say his first name, Mike, read, doing his networking with somebody, and then came across through that networking some information about a company that just went through bankruptcy. Counterintuitively, he did a direct approach to the hiring person about how they're going to come out of that. He's been interviewed, and they hadn't even announced the job. He's had 2 interviews. So the networking sometimes will help you find information that you'd never run across. It's what I kind of call you're standing in the stream. How many of you fish? Ever fish a little bit in the streams? Stream fishing seems to me has a little more ambiance and the flow of the water more than just sitting out in the boat, drowning those worms. But think of the flow of, you're standing in the middle of a river and you're looking for information is really what you're looking for. Where is there a need? If you stand there and fish while that stream is flowing by you, there's lots of stuff that goes by you never see. But if you have a network of people, a number of folks who know what you're fishing for, and you've stayed in touch with them, much better chance of catching the information and then have it passed on to you. And that's what happened with Mike. Somebody he was connecting with say, I saw this, and counterintuitively, a company thought, oh, they're in the tank. Actually, there's an opportunity because that company will come out of it, and some of the people who were let go will have to be replaced. Okay. Why people don't network. Do you resonate with any of those? Okay. I have, I think, learned over the 30 years I've been doing this kind of work, a surefire way to help you solve the first 3. And so I'm going to ask you to do a couple of things. One is, now I know that you've got a piece of paper that printed on both sides. If you got an extra piece of paper, or if you've got the evaluation sheet that we were given on the way in, it's only printed on one side, we'll give you another one. Turn it over and put your hand on it and draw an outline of your hand. Or if some of you are really good artists, maybe you can draw one. I can't, so. I learned from a man by the name of Richard Bowles, who wrote the book, What Color's Your Parachute?, about a process that he calls practice field survey. And the idea is that, look, none of us really, well, there's a few of us that really love interviewing. Some people just thrive on that. But to get good at it, you have to spend time doing it. And one of the things that I learned from him early in my career in this field was to do a practice field survey, you do it with something, it could be done with something related to your work, but it could be done with something totally unrelated to your work as a way to practice and get better and better at networking. And actually, in the process of networking, by the way, good networking leads to good interviewing because you get so much better at it and so comfortable talking about yourself and asking questions. It's not just about answering questions, it's asking questions that you basically probably can find and talk to anybody anywhere, even if you'd consider yourself more of an introvert. And so let me suggest to you that one of the ways you can practice this is to find something you're interested in and then go to some simple resources in your home or at the public library that'll help you find people who share that interest. And let me suggest to you the yellow pages of your telephone book is very well indexed. You might be able to look through that index with the idea of the connection you want to make, whether it's work-related or just fun-related, and find somebody in there just by logic, reading down through alphabetically, are these people that would share my interest in such and such a thing? And call them up. I'm going to give you the 5 questions in a minute, but call them up, and here are the 4 powerful words that you ask. Could you help me, please? I'm looking for someone who shares my interest in whatever it happens to be. Now, I had to do this in the July of 1979 on a Friday after I'd been through a whole week of process and training with Dick Bowles. I was in Kansas City, Missouri, a town I'd never been in. There was 50 of us. So me and 49 other people. Dick said, okay, you're out the chute today. We want you to go do a practice field survey in Kansas City. You're on your own all day. We'll see you at 7 o'clock tonight, based on what he'd already told us to do. Some people decided to look for work. Some of us, in my case, I decided to pursue something kind of screwy. I had gotten interested, and in another life I would be an architect, okay? I was a history major in college, and historic preservation fascinated me. I'd studied and lived in the New England area, which is fascinating to see houses that are 300 years old. But I decided I wanted to pursue an interest in how could, or is it possible to incorporate a silo into a house? Now, of course, right, us Midwesterners, we've seen all these silos that are still standing. The farmhouse is long gone, the barn burned down, and it's been turned into a development. Why is that building, why is that silo still sitting there? And of course, if any of you've lived in other parts of the country where you're on a hill that's higher than 4 feet, which we don't see many of in the Midwest, right? The vista, loving to have a vista. So that was my idea. He said anything, so that's what I pursued. I went to the phone book, started down through the index, and first word I ran into that made sense was architects. Maybe architects know something about that. And I looked under the listing for architects, and lo and behold, I found an American Institute of Architect bookstore, which of course, bookstores, I love books. I got on the phone, called them up and said, could you help me, please? I'm looking for someone who shares my interest in silos, incorporating silos into houses, and it's somewhat related to historic preservation. The person proceeded for 20 minutes to give me contacts out of their business card. This is a Rolodex back then. And I had a page. I finally cut her off. I said, wow, I've just got a day to do this. That should suffice me. So one call, used the yellow pages. Picked somebody off the list. I said, I only got a day. Who's going to know the most? The person I picked was the architectural editor at the Kansas City Star. Now, I got to tell you, at this time, I'm 31. I'm still I know you can't imagine this, a little shy, okay? A little gutsy to call somebody at a big major newspaper and say, could you help me, please? But I did it. I didn't expect to get the person because it's the morning of a Friday, and he's probably got something he's working on for Sunday's edition. Lo and behold, he comes to the phone. Could you help me, please? To this day, I know his first name is Joe. I can't remember his last name. I should go back and do some research, find him, and send him a big thank you. I said, could you help me, please? I'm looking for someone who shares my interest in da-da-da-da. He proceeded to, off the top of his head, all these articles that he'd probably written and people he'd talked to, give me all the different kinds of people that I talked to. Got off the phone. I'm like, holy cow. And I called one of the persons that seemed to make sense. I can't remember which list it came off of. At the Historic Kansas City Foundation. Got a person on the phone, and that person said, just a minute, let me check. I think maybe our architect will be here over lunch. They'd be available. They came back, sure, they'll spend some time talking to you. Now, somehow or another, the message from the person who answered the phone to the architect wasn't passed along about what I wanted to talk about, just that would he have some time. So I kind of meandered my way downtown for my noon meeting. Notice I've never been in Kansas City before. I don't know anybody, and I'm getting an appointment inside of 3 hours with somebody, with those 4 words and using some good resources. I walk in and sit down and start talking with him about what I'm doing and what I'm interested in. The guy lights up like a tree because he's a University of Michigan School of Architecture grad, and he's designed 4 houses with silos in them. And he proceeded to tell me all of the problems and the advantages and what you got to do and so on. And it was like, oh my goodness. And then he said, and I said, is there anybody else I ought to talk to? He gets on the phone and calls on a guy at another historic preservation society who says, sure, send him right over. I go over and have another meeting for an hour. I get back at 4 o'clock. I'm not supposed to be back technically till 7, but I'm done. 49 other people came back with the same story. Just by saying, going to a little simple resource like your phone book and asking a few questions. And here's the 5 questions that essentially I asked and I would encourage you to consider. And here's the reason. You need to think about interviewing the person who's in your network first. They're not interviewing you. You need to interview them. You need to focus on them. And I'm going from the pinky to the thumb very intentionally, okay? So first question is a pinky question. And it's actually not a question. It's, tell me your story. How did you get to be where you are today, interested in this or working in this field? I've had people that I've asked that of who didn't stop talking for an hour and a half. They've been dying for someone to come along and just be interested in them. The second question is a question along, what do you like or dislike about this field, this kind of work? Where is it headed? Third question, what kind of activities have you found helpful in your career? Or if you were pursuing an interest in helping you pursue your interest in this particular type of thing, like silos. Okay? Notice the first 3 questions are not about you, they're about them. The fourth question becomes one, is there anything else you think I ought to know about this, or about this field, or about your experience? Is there anything else somebody like me ought to know? And what you're really prompting them to do is to turn the thing on its head and say, well, why don't you tell me your story? And of course, as I did for you at the beginning here, if you had a 90-second, 2-minute kind of presentation, verbal resume as I call it, you can give them that information. So 4 questions. The 5th question is so important. Who else should I be talking to? Could you direct me? Could you give me a referral to somebody else? I really appreciate the advice and the conversation with you today. If you'll go practice that on just things you're interested in, you'll get better and better at interviewing, for 1, and 2, you can build a network that's a monster. And by the way, you can even do this online. Though I recommend that the online kinds of things, such as LinkedIn and Plaxo and things like that, you use that to supplement face-to-face networking, not as a substitute for. You do not want to hide behind your computer terminal or your PC, avoiding having conversations with people. You will basically find yourself not having problems with these 5. I would suggest that if you practice that as part of your work search process, you'll have a network pretty quick. The key then becomes staying in touch with those people. Not everybody will have the time or the interest, but as much as possible, even when you get referred on to somebody else, to say, could I stay in touch with you so I can tell you what progress I've made? And I want to stay in touch with you because of my interest in silos. Okay? You can build a really big network. Now, you think about it, I bet you've been doing this all along, you hadn't thought about it that way. When you're interested in something, you go talk to people about that. Make it a lifestyle, make it a habit, because what you're doing is you're not only helping yourself, but you're helping other people. And that's why for me the golden rule, do for others as you'd have them do for you, is the heart of this thing. You're about community development for yourself and for other people's benefit. And if you do that as a habit, you'll find that over time, the work opportunities are going to come to you. You're not going to have to go chase them down. It's the difference between what I call job hunting, posted on the internet, and 3,000 people try to shoot it down, okay, or work search, where you're finding the opportunity before there's a mob trying to find it. Matter of fact, somebody calls you and says, you know, there's an opportunity that fits you because I know you well and I know you're in transition. Maybe you should go talk to them. Yes. Thank you. Somebody asked the question.
Well, you know, I just got to thinking when I was looking over your list and places to go for networking, and I found that personal networking, online networking like Facebook, where you know a lot of the people, has
Right.
really helped me. It's helped me in support. It's helped me. There's been people posting job postings when they know I'm looking.
Yes.
It's encouragement. It's, you know, it's just everything. There's people who become resources for you if you need
Exactly.
a place to stay.
Wonderful. I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah.
And why I say personal is because it's not like we're a blogging site or something where nobody knows you, even though
Right.
that could help, because that's like clubs
Right.
and stuff. But it's a place where these people know you. They either know you from high school or their family or their
Right.
friends of friends. And I have like 79 or 80 friends on there that I didn't know I had before.
Right.
They keep finding me, and
Yeah.
it's been great.
LinkedIn, Plaxo, Facebook. I've done very little with MySpace. There's a number of other ones. They're growing like crazy out there. You can do searches on those websites to find people. I mean, you could take your high school, you know, I could take Wheaton Academy and put it in there and find people who graduated from Wheaton Academy. I could put in a word like silos, and I'd probably find somebody who has some connection to silos. So in that respect, there's where I think the internet and those kind of sites is so helpful.
Even things that have to do with like your hobbies and interests, because there's things that have to do even with my animals, because I have dogs. You meet people, and you can also find people that live right in your own town.
Mm-hmm.
Networking with people that you didn't even know were around. So
Got to start this activity or we won't get it done here. Take one, pass it
there's
along.
animalattraction.com and zoos here, just tons of them. You meet people and all those people, so it's just never ending, really.
What I'd like you to do on those over the next few minutes as I talk is I'd like you to put your name, a means of contacting you, a phone number, email. If you want to put both, that's fine. And then write down who has the power to hire you. That is, if you go to work for somebody, who is the person who made the key decision that you're the person? What's that job title of that person? So if you were an engineer, maybe it's the director of engineering. Okay? So you may be 2 or 3 kinds of people like that. Okay? And then the last thing I want you to put on there is something you're interested in. Silos, dogs. We're going to do a little activity with it towards the end just to help you see how you can network. By the way, how many of you have a business card? Ooh, that's good. Half of the people. If you are seriously looking for work and you are serious about networking, you need to get a little business card. You can make them up from cardstock that you can buy at Staples or Office Max or Kinko's, and print them on your own printer if you want to. But you can. I know Staples near me does my cards, and I took my finished product in. I designed it myself, took it in, and they had it printed inside of an hour. Yes?
I can't think of the name, but on the online credit card, not credit card, but business card place.
Vistaprint.com.
They'll give you 250 free cards.
Yep. For the cost of postage.
Yeah.
For the cost of postage.
You choose all different templates.
Yep. You can even upload your own design work. But you need that. One of the things that you're going to have to do as you network is you need to be able to talk about who you are and what you're good at. What is it you know? Who do you know? I suggest making up a sheet of paper with 3 columns on it, A, B, and C. A column is people who know you, love you, care about you, and would do anything to help you. By the way, they aren't going to get you the job. It's people in the B and C list that are actually going to be the people who are probably going to connect you. The B group is people you're acquainted with. They're not that close to you as the A group. And then the C group are people you bump into all the time. How many of you grocery shop? Have you ever talked a little bit with the cashier or the stock person? Or anybody belong to a club? Do you stand around and ask the 5 questions? What's the club?
I actually remember many. Astronomy club.
Astronomy club, okay. So you have an interest in astronomy.
Yes.
Okay, so have you ever sat down with the people in that group, whether it's 5 people or 500, and gotten acquainted with them?
I have, but I have not asked these particular questions.
Okay. Yeah, so how did you get interested in astronomy? What do you like and dislike about it? What kind of activity has been helpful to you? They'll probably turn it the other way, and you can probably in the conversation will come out, and I'm in transition. I really enjoy my astronomy. I've not been able to earn my living at it. I'd love to, but this is what I do. These are my talents. Whom else should I be talking to? So know what you want. And of course, know what you're good at, and frankly, know what you're not good at. I'll tell you one thing I'm not really good at. I'm not really good with details. I have to really work at that. So I find ways to stay organized, which is really about the last one down here. And let me suggest some things that you ought to be doing if you're going to stay organized. One is work on that verbal resume or short elevator speech. You got no more than 2 minutes to tell it to anybody, because we lose our attention drifts after 120 seconds. And it needs to stay away from talking about your age. Never, ever, 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 ever refer to your talents as 25 years of experience. That's not what employers are going to look for anyway. HR people think in terms of skills, knowledge, and abilities. So you need to learn that kind of language. Secondly, you need a business card. Thirdly, you need to have some means of contacting you, so a phone or email, a calendar, a watch. Okay? One of the things I suggest to people when they're doing networking is they don't set up too long of a periods of time, because people are busy. So 30 minutes maybe is all you really need. And if you're trying to approach somebody sort of cold turkey, I'm interested in silos, you want to say, I realize you're probably busy, I'm calling you out of the blue. Would you have 20 or 30 minutes here in the next few days? I've waited as long as 8 weeks for people who I approached. One guy told me when I called him, and this is when I came to Grand Rapids early, he said, gee, Ken, I'd love to talk with you, but I've got this big presentation that I got to finish and make in 2 hours. I said, I'm out of here. I'll call you tomorrow. And I called him tomorrow. What was the first thing I said? How'd your presentation go? I was building a relationship with him, even though I just talked to him, because I was caring about him, not about me. And he appreciated that, and it went well. And then he just poured out stuff. It was like it was easy for him to talk to him now, because he wasn't under a time constraint, and he knew I cared about what was going on for him, not just me. So it is, again, to say over and over again, it's a two-way street here, folks. Focus on the other person. Follow up with people. Here's a place where many people fail to take advantage and actually make their network stronger. The more you communicate, within a little bit of limits, if I called you every day, I met you today, I called you every day for the next week, you'd probably get a little tired of me. But I might ask you, could I call you would it be okay to contact you within a month or 3 weeks? Would that be okay with you? Get their permission. What would be too frequent or not frequent enough? So revisit, follow up, because you're going to build a lot of trust and credibility that way. You can see that you're respecting their time. You truly are interested in them. And by the way, if you hear something about what's going on in their life or in their interests and you come across it, bingo. Send them an email, send a note. It's amazing. I've had people who I saw, I picked up, talk about a cold turkey type of approach. Go to the Grand Rapids Press, I think it's on Sundays, maybe it's every day now, I can never remember, where they say personnel moves or people who've changed jobs or go do a little research and call up the person in the field that you're interested in who just got an award or just got promoted. Call them saying, you know, Ken, congratulations, I saw your picture in the paper and that you were promoted. Really, it was, I've had people say, really, it was in the paper? I said, you didn't see it? No, I didn't see it. Would you like a copy? Oh, yeah. Now I've begun to develop some rapport. You're looking out for folks. See, that's probably one of the best ways. By the way, articles in the paper or periodicals, you'd be amazed how many people whose name's in print, they're quoted, never get a phone call from the readership. And calling acknowledges them being seen as an expert. And there's a place where you do cold call and say, would you be open to 15, 20 minutes? I'd like to get your advice, pick your brain, get a little acquainted. Network. Okay? One of the things I would caution you about is when you've begun to build a network, you're going to have moments that are up and down. I know that, right? Everybody's really up every day, right? No, of course you're not. You're a human being. You're going to go like this. It would be very natural. It would be unnatural to be always up. You're going to do this a little bit. So don't go to the people in your network for whom having a bad day is not going to help you. Probably that A-list group of people is probably the group that they're not going to be upset with you if you say, Ken, I need to have a cup of coffee. I'm having a bad day. I just need someone to talk to. So just be a little careful about how you do that. And of course, don't be afraid to say thank you. And I would suggest to you one of the most powerful things you can do to build your network is to write a handwritten thank you note. Because in our culture right now, everything's digital. That's easy. Everybody knows it's easy. You pull out, even if you created your own cards off of like Microsoft Publisher, you know, where you take the piece of paper and fold it twice and it makes a card that opens. You can buy nice little, I think they're called invitation cards into which those will fit perfectly. Write them a handwritten note. Say, thanks for spending a little bit of time with me. Here's my card. Stick your card in there again. Make certain that they know you appreciate them. And of course, you're listening to them, so maybe you run across something in the ensuing few days after you've had that conversation with them, and you pop something that you saw into that card, in with that card, and send it to them. People remember that stuff because it's so unusual anymore. You treat them like a person, not like an email address. And I know email is a lot easier to do. It's real fast. Build that network, nurture it, water it, and it'll come back and help you out a great deal. Obviously, there are times when you're going to be in transition. You just don't want to talk about it anymore. One of the things I encourage you to do, as I have been encouraging people, is don't use that termination terms. Refer to yourself as in transition. You're not unemployed. You may be working harder now than you ever were and enjoying it less. And have fun with this. Again, if I can encourage anything out of here, if you were to go out in the next week and focus on practice field surveying, you'd be amazed at the returns you'll get on that. You'll have a lot of fun with it. It could even be a good break away from, I'm so focused on so beating myself up because I'm not landing a job fast enough, that you'd have a lot of fun with it. A lot of fun with it. And you begin to build your network, and people will find out that you're in transition, even if you're talking about silos, and begin to say, how can I help you? And just like you'd said, how can I help you? So, and give. Again, part of it's counterintuitive maybe at this point. I want a job. I want to get a job. If you can think in terms of how can I give to others, listen to them, listen to their story, develop that relationship, you're going to be in much better shape for the long haul, because again, as I said, job security is dead. It's an oxymoron. We are going to need this network to create career security. Surely a good number of you are running across the fact that it doesn't seem like employers want employees anymore. They want contract workers. If you've got a good network, the more likely you are to be able to find those new gigs, as we refer to it, much like artists do. Yes?
What I'm finding is that a lot of people want one person to have a whole lot of skills. So they are trying to get more bang for their buck out of the person. And so
Right.
before, like I'm in web design, print design, graphic design, web development.
Mhm.
But what I find is they not only want a designer for print and web, but they also want the developer and they want a marketer, a web marketing person. So then most of the jobs I see out there, they're trying to get, 4 people.
For the price of one.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
And so then you get, so then that's what I'm finding the hardest part is trying to figure out exactly what I need to, what new skills I need to learn so I
Learn.
can get.
And you need to pay attention to what you're learning from the marketplace and from your network. If you're hearing those kind of things, realize that right now, because of where the economy is not growing, it seems to be still retreating, though you hear some conversation about it seems to be leveling off. Seeing's believing. You need to pay attention to what's happening there and realize, one is employers are asking for the moon. They think they can get it. I think you're going to find that a lot of employers eventually begin to realize they'll take less than perfect. But if you network, you're more likely to find your way into a spot where they can see, oh, you don't have everything, but you got so much that we love.
Right.
Well, we know you can learn it because
Right.
we've experienced you enough to know that, oh, you could pick this up. And of course, if you are in a situation where you're eligible for the No Worker Left Behind funding, go talk to them. I know there's a lot of red tape there, but there are funds available. Maybe give you just the training you need to get you a little better qualified because they're asking for the money. They're asking for them. We only got a couple minutes left here. I want to do, if I could get the green or colored cards back, I'd just do a little quick exercise here. And what I'm going to do, is I'm going to ask you, I'm going to give not your card back to you. I'm going to give you somebody else's card. To get you going on networking, what I'd like to ask you to do is to be in touch with, and whether you do it right now is not as important, but sometime here in the next 3 or 4 days, contact this person and try practicing some of what I've suggested with somebody maybe in a field that's so far away from where you are. That's okay. If you color outside the lines and think outside the box, you might find somebody, like I did, who knew something about silos in a town you've never been in before. So
Ken, I have a burning question. Did you design a house with a silo in it? Or?
no, I didn't. I don't think that's yours, right? No. Okay. Read just the first name and what's their interest at the bottom. The last thing was just what's their first name.
Okay.
It's Gary, right?
Yeah.
And what's the interest?
Snowboarding.
Snowboarding. Oh, interesting. Okay. How about
Michael and
military
military aviation.
aviation? Okay. And yours?
Greg.
Greg, and what's the interest? Pick one of them if there's more than one. Networking, okay. I hope these are mixing up. If you get your own, you have to trade. Okay. Okay, and just go ahead and read the person's first name. And yes, just go right around the.
Want to get my own back?
I hope not. Did I give you your own back?
No,
That's
I'm
yours.
good.
Okay. I'll let you pick. If you didn't do a purple one, then we can't mess that one up. That's Ruth. I don't think that's you, probably. Go ahead. What other ones have we got here?
I've got Dan, interest, he listed a couple, boating, all types, cooking, problem solving, woodworking.
Okay. Next.
Dave, river fishing.
River fishing. Oh, okay. Next one.
Rick, NASCAR racing.
NASCAR racing. Oh, who's Rick? Oh, we got to talk. And yours?
Lori, outdoor activities.
Okay. Oh, did I not give you an? Oh, sorry. Why don't you go here?
Okay, Ruth, knitting, camping, and hunting.
Ruth and hunting.
I know.
That breaks all the stereotypes, right?
Randy, camping.
Okay,
Lucky.
okay,
Becky, elderly and aging.
okay. Not referring to herself, but to a population, okay.
Felicity, people and animals.
People and animals. Weren't you the person that liked dogs?
Yeah, well, this is helping those in need.
Aha, okay,
People and animals.
Roger.
okay,
Photography, electronic, and memory.
okay. What I'd like to encourage you to do is network with these folks. I have seen networking in a group as small as this produce some really good results, even if the people don't know anything about your field, because they probably know other people that know about your field or what you're interested in. I've seen groups as small as 3 produce connections. As small as 3, all right? We got about, 12 of us here. Please take a moment and complete the evaluation form. Give us some feedback so we have an idea of how well this went, what we did well, what we could do better. And